Who is especially excited about the email they've written to their mother? Who wants to share their brilliant...
I'll share the one I received as a mother being asked for money.
Okay, do you want to? Okay, come up here and I'll share my...
Mom, can you Venmo me money for food?
There you go.
Oh, yes, baby.
Mom, can you Venmo me money for food? That would work. That would work. Most of our mothers would, in fact, send money. Who else has an email they want to share that they wrote for their mother? Okay. Come up here. I'll share the microphone with you here.
This is a regular old email, right? I'm not supposed to be asking for anything, correct?
You're supposed to ask them for money. You're supposed to ask your mother for money.
Oh, she asked me for money. I didn't do this right.
Oh, okay. We probably should get someone who did it right.
No, I didn't do it.
Okay, sorry. It was instructor error. Let's be clear. It was instructor error. The point of the email is to ask your mother for money. So, did you write one? Okay.
I did. Okay. It's very informal. Hi, Mom. Would you like to give a generous donation of $20 to the development of One Direction? One Direction is developing into becoming a leader and helping children attend college and become career ready. Ashley Roberts.
Okay. It was short and sweet, right? She said, she described, and this is one of the things I loved, and I think this is the natural form of communication with someone who's really close to us. She described rather objectively what the organization did. She didn't say, oh, it's so amazing, they do the most amazing work. No, what they do is they help kids with, I can't remember your words, but right, it was just straightforward. And I think that's the way we ought to communicate with people in general. Not that we can't and shouldn't share stories, but the more polished and the longer this email gets, the more you're sending clues to the recipient that you're sending this to a lot of people. And the more a recipient thinks that this is going to a lot of people, the less likely they are to donate. The goal is to convey the idea that you sat down and personally wrote an email to Bob so that Bob will give you money, right? And that is a trick, because I know when I do this, I get into that space where I start thinking about marketing terms and the flourish and the compelling stories and all that. Simple is better. But the key then is to invest the time not in polishing the story, not in polishing the ask, but in polishing the customization so that you communicate at the top of the email how and why this is personal, and that you are absolutely writing one email to one person. Yeah, you had a question.
So in her email, she put a particular amount. Is that recommended or not recommended? How do you think?
Yeah. People in this space disagree on this strategy. I am a given amount person. Now, the problem with giving an amount is if you give an amount that's too high, they won't give it all. If you give an amount that's too low, they may give you less than what they would have given you otherwise. So if you're talking to your friends, which is the idea here, right, you can kind of pre-qualify them. So probably the best strategy is to have a base number in mind. Now, I literally did one where the base number I gave people was $4. I said, listen, I really need you to make a donation. It's just so important for you to signal your support, even if it's not with big dollars, that a $4 donation would really be appreciated. I told everybody the same number. I averaged about $75 on the donations, among those that gave, and about half gave.
So are you trying to create a culture with that of just getting your people that you have on your email list a culture of giving? So you kind
Yeah, so there are a variety of ways to think about this. And again, I'm thinking about this from the standpoint of each individual on the team reaching out to friends rather than how I manage the database of donors at my nonprofit. And those two things are blurry lines for people who work at nonprofits or run nonprofits, right? That's a blurry line. And there are really sophisticated donor management tools that I'm not an expert with that help you manage those donor relationships over time. So my thought process is really only going to how do I get someone to donate today to this crowdfunding campaign, right? So I'm not really answering your question about how to manage this donor long term. And giving a range is certainly not a bad idea.
I had that experience. My daughter set up something similar like that for my birthday, and she knows that I'm diabetic. So she did it with the Diabetes Association.
Yeah.
And she had asked those that was gonna give me a birthday present to send certain amount to that organization, and I think she got about $100.
Yeah.
So they weren't gonna give me too much.
Yeah. I don't get a lot of birthday presents these days. I don't know about you, but I'm not getting a lot of birthday presents. I don't have trouble opening the mail around my birthday. All righty, let's keep going here. So the idea, let me close the loop on this whole discussion about email. The email you write your mother is the template from which you work to write the other emails, right? You take that email to your mother with its basic, short, simple message, and then you add customization, removing things like your loving daughter, right, from the message. That would not be an appropriate way to, close an email to Bob. But take that simple language, make it the template, and then customize it for each of the 100 or 150 people on your email list. Again, serious customization is the key. And again, if you have a newsletter list, I really want to encourage you to use that newsletter list to, promote your crowdfunding campaign. But I want to show you a little bit of the math and how I think this really will play out. If you use my strategy with the mother template email, this is kind of small, so in the back you probably can't see it. For that, I apologize. But I think 100% of the people you send this message to are going to open it. We're getting worse and worse at email, and so that may not be true, but it's going to be close to 100% because it's from you. And you're writing to people you know and love and who love you back, right? They read your email. So 100% get opened. Most people are going to click. If you send them a link to learn more, most are going to click. So you probably are going to get half to give. Now, again, part of that is my strategy of giving them a low minimum donation, right? Just give me $4. A donation from you is important, just to signal your support. And like the last time I did that, I had about 6% of the donors give $4. But I think among those who did give, I averaged about 75. So if you assume that 50% give, that's 50 people out of 100, and if they each give you an average of $50, that's $2,500 off this strategy. That's a pretty good return on 100 emails. Now, if you're sending out a newsletter to 10,000 people, about 20% open on average. Now, some of you will have better open rates, but some of you will have worse open rates, right? So let's call it 20% is about the average for nonprofit newsletter open rates. Maybe 2% are going to get a click, and then 0.2% will get all the way through the donation process. So you're talking about getting 20 donations. Again, if they average $50, that's $1,000 from your 10,000 newsletter list. Compare that to 2,500 from your 100-person list, right? Now, it's a different sort of list. It's a completely different animal. But this is one of the keys, I think, to successful crowdfunding is this very approach, building around the template of the email to your mother. And then the deep customization. As you go through this exercise, be sure to track every contact. Heaven forbid you call someone who says no. The last thing you want to have happen is that you forget that they told you no, and you call them back so they can tell you no again. That would be more than I could take. I would quit. So write everything down so you don't make that mistake. And the crowdfunding sites are getting better these days at allowing you to share a preview of the campaign before it's live. So you can give people a link sometimes. It depends on the site you're using, but you can give someone a preview. But you may not be able to. And so you may need to be also sending them an email when you do launch that says, today we're live, now please make your pledge. Some of the sites will even allow your donors to sort of pre-pledge, all right? They'll allow you to go on and make a donation in advance, but it doesn't count until you actually launch. And they don't, so it's, anyway, but you may need to follow up, so again, you need to keep track. So that's really the ground war. That whole exercise of meeting your big backers face to face, calling your friends and emailing your friends, that's the ground war. Now we're talking about the air campaign. When we talk about the air war, in my mind what we're talking about is the media and social media. So we've talked at great length about, we wrote the press release, right? And we talked about identifying the list of people to whom we may send it. Now I want to talk about how you send it, because that may be the most important step of all. It may surprise you to know, but journalists are human beings. Were any of you aware of this? Yeah. It turns out they are. And so we need to take advantage of their human nature. So let me talk a little bit about how this works. Journalists get lots of story ideas or pitches, right? In a typical week, I will get somewhere between 500 and 1,000 pitches. So I can't even answer everybody. Forget write a story about them. If I did nothing but give them a thoughtful, individual, personal reply as to why I'm not writing about them, all I would ever do is sit and reply to emails requesting media coverage. And I'm not a famous journalist. I'm not a big deal. Can you imagine what a big deal journalist is getting? Or the sort of tip line email address at the local paper. They're inundated with stuff. So you have to be strategic. For most journalists, because of this need to accept story ideas from the public, they put their email address out there. It has to be out there. Now, it's not universally true. It's not true generally of television media. It may or may not be true for radio personalities. But bloggers, podcasters, most print journalists, even at the New York Times, there's a little link right there on every story to click on the profile for the author of the story. You click through to that, and one of the things is a little button to send an email to the journalist right there at the New York Times. And it's certainly true at most newspapers. So for most of the people you want to reach, there is a way to reach that individual. So do that. That's for step one. Now, we've already talked about how you select them, right? You're already found people that are relevant to you. You're not choosing people at random. They're people who write about what you're doing. The next thing is to change the conversation. And so step one is to use their name. Now, I know that sounds crazy and obvious, but most of the story ideas I'm pitched each week don't come addressed to Devin. They come addressed to hi there. A few, literally, I am not exaggerating. I am not using this in the sense of the millennial use of the word literally. I mean literally. Some of the email pitches I get are addressed to hi first name, right? Because they're sent using a broken mail merge template is what's happened, right? So I'm getting hi first name back. That's not my top priority story already, right? I can tell you. Hi there comes next, right after hi first name, right? If I get a hi there, I know this is an email going to a lot of journalists. I am nothing special, and so guess what? What they're telling me is it's not going to be interesting. It's not going to be interesting to me as a journalist because it's going to a lot of people. So then the next thing is make yourself a fan instead of just someone who's pitching a story, right? So how do you do that? You say, I read your story about Rwanda, and I was touched. I thought it was so compelling, the way you told that story. Thank you for sharing that. Now, make yourself a customer, right? So you're a fan, become a customer. Say, I subscribe to you, or I follow you on social media. I follow you on Twitter. I follow you on Facebook. I follow you on LinkedIn. I follow you somewhere. That's cheap and free as a general rule, right? You may also be a paid subscriber to the magazine or newspaper or something. If you are, be sure to say that. Now you've completely changed the dialogue. You're a fan. You're a customer. You are entitled to a reply. Wow. I get 1,000 emails every week. I reply to maybe 3 personally, right? Okay, so you put yourself just in the camp of people who get a reply. You have changed the game dramatically. So then, after you've become a fan, you've used the name, become a fan, become a customer, the last thing is become relevant. Now you have, at most, 2 sentences to accomplish all of that, right? At least to get their interest. So all the fan, customer, etc., that happens in 1 sentence, and then you've got 1 sentence to be relevant. So you've got to think about, why does this journalist want to write a story about my crowdfunding campaign? Maybe it's because it's a crowdfunding campaign, if that's what interests them. Maybe it's because of what your nonprofit does. Maybe it's because of the people involved. Maybe you're writing to a journalist at the New York Times who came from Jackson, right? Who knows? But whatever the angle is, be sure to understand why it's most relevant to that particular journalist and explain why that story would be relevant. Okay? Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I have just a really odd question.
Mm-hmm.
How would I be one of the 3?
Yeah, that's. This is the what? Yeah, this is how. So you write. You say, "Dear Bob," instead of "Hi there," or "Hi Bob." Right. So you're using first name. That's maybe 10% of the pitches I get. Right. So you've narrowed it down to the top 100 by using my name. You say you read something that you liked that I wrote. Well, now you're in the top 10% of that. So you're in the top 10. You tell me you follow me on social media somewhere. Now, boom, you are entitled to a reply, right? That's how it narrows down, right? Because now I have time to write to all 3 people who wrote me a story idea this week who have that level of personal connection, right? I have time for that, so that's how you get that. You get your story covered, you get to be that 1 in 1,000 really, by being relevant, right? That's the last piece. But the interesting thing is, you only had to be the most relevant of the last 3 or maybe 10 that we're talking about. You don't have to be the most relevant of the 1,000, because I filtered out most of that 1,000 without reading one word of an email, because it came to hi there, or it came to hi first name, right? Does that make sense? Okay. So that's how you ask. Now, so you send out those press releases. One key thing is you want to send the press release in the body of the email. You want to make sure that you communicate that you or someone else in the organization is available for an interview if they want to talk to you. That's why you put the contact information, including a phone number, at the bottom. I probably wouldn't attach photos or any attachment. And the reason is it increases the likelihood of a spam filter blocking you. And I might not even include a link. If I include links, I would include only one or at most two. But you can say, I have photos for you. If you'd like photos to run with this story, I have them. I'll be happy to send them. With a flyer? Yeah, flyer wouldn't help most journalists. Yeah, so what they want is the press release or a detailed media alert. I'm not a big fan of the media alerts, but essentially a media alert is the information that goes into a press release, but without that format. And I think that's stupid, because what you're really doing is saying, I'm not going to do your work for you. I want you to do your work for you, for me. And, journalism is getting harder, not easier. It pays less than it ever did. You've got to do more of the work for people, or you're not going to get covered. So that's why I would always be sure to send a press release. Okay. So, let's have a party. I did, in my book, Crowdfunding for Social Good, I mentioned the idea of maybe having a party. But in my mind, the importance of that has really elevated since I've seen that done well. So I would kick off your campaign with a party. Now, theoretically, you'd start your campaign in the morning so that everybody that's lined up in advance has donated by the time the party starts. So that you have lots of money by the time it's 7 o'clock at night and you're ready to throw back a brewski or an iced tea or whatever you do at your parties. Here in Mississippi, in Utah, we have Diet Coke in both hands. So whatever you drink, that's great. But have your party. But at 7 o'clock, you want a lot of money in the till already, right? And so at the party, even if it's small, even if you just had 15 or 20 people in your living room, what you want to do is create a mechanism, a trigger for sharing on social media. So you want to make sure that there is a hashtag that everyone knows to use, that everyone knows the link for the campaign. So you've got to find one way or another to create a short link to the campaign. There's some fancy ways. It's not very fancy. I can do it. But, like the Devon.today, the video thing, that's not hard, but I have to go to GoDaddy to do that. But you can just go to Bitly to get a short link at Bitly, and there are other places like that where you can get a short link. But create a little short link to your campaign that doesn't require someone to remember a small novel. Because your crowdfunding campaign link at Caring Crowd or Fundly or anywhere else could be long. And if it's long, no one can remember it, right? So you want to be able to direct people in an easy way. So get a short link to your, and make sure people are sharing that link and the hashtag. Give them a reason to do it. So that night at the party, you say, we're going to give.
Can you say the name of the apps again that will
Yeah, the link, the one I always use is bit.ly, so it's bit.ly. You just go there and you put in your long link and it'll make it into a short link. And one of the things that most people don't know, here's the bit.ly on steroids tip, and it's still free. When you go to bit.ly and you put in the long link and it gives you the short link, you can change it to anything you want.
Wow.
So it's going to give you about 9 digits of gibberish. You can change it to Mississippi 1, or Mississippi 2, or Mississippi 13. And if there's a 2-digit number that means something in your campaign, use that. Or use Miss and something else, right? But customize it any way you want. Something short, sweet, but it's free. So you may be able to get a bit.ly link for a URL you'd never be able to get, and it's free, and it's permanent, lasts forever. So, bit.ly, and the hashtag. But give people an excuse, something to post on Instagram. And you're saying, what could I do? So, a local celebrity is probably your best bet. So, like, if you can get the weatherman to come to your party, get the weatherman to come to your party. Everybody will want a picture with the weatherman, right? Just make sure that when they post their picture of themselves with the weatherman, that they've used the hashtag and the link, right? So now, all of a sudden, now maybe it's a poster, like you know that picture I used at the beginning with the really tall guy? None of you probably knew who he was, right? That tall guy? He was Mark Eaton. He was an NBA star back in the day who played for the Utah Jazz and was, he was an all-star one season, defensive player of the year, I think, in the NBA. Anyway, no, it doesn't matter. But he was tall, right? So he was the perfect kind of guy to have at the party. What might also work? A cutout of Chewbacca, right, might work. Who knows? If you have a party with some of the beneficiaries, and your beneficiaries are like cute little kids, with permission from their parents, right, you might want to let people take pictures with these cute, adorable kids that you're helping. So there are all kinds of different things you could do that people would want to take pictures of and share. And what does that do? It expands. So you've got 20 people in your living room, and across their social media platforms, each one of them has 1,000 people. So suddenly 20,000 people have been exposed to your crowdfunding campaign on the first day. And by the way, because you've done everything else I've talked about, you're crushing it already. It's day one, and you've raised $5,000 per person in your campaign on day one. You are making huge progress. And there's a lot of excitement in that living room as you're talking about what's going on. So, have a party. Then, you've now had this supreme, amazing launch to your crowdfunding campaign. You've got tons of money already in the bank. It looks like, to an outside observer, right? It's the iceberg, right? They don't know about your meetings with the big backers. They don't know about the 30 phone calls. They don't know about the hours you spent writing customized emails to 150 people. What they do know is that your campaign started 24 or 48 hours ago, and you are crushing it. Now you send an email to the media and say, holy cow, we're 24 hours in, and look at the support we've already reached. We're past our goal, or we're 50% to our goal, whatever the situation is. Isn't that worth a story? So people who may have written about you before maybe will write again, a little follow-up story. People who didn't write about you before because they didn't think you were serious, now they're going to write about you because obviously if you're raising money, you're serious. You're for real. So send out that second email. Then social media. Now it's interesting, I think, that we're talking about crowdfunding, which so many of us associate with social media. How much time have we spent talking about social media today? Almost none, right? Now, we're going to talk about it now, but the reason I haven't talked about it much is I'm not a big believer that it's an important, super important part. But let me also be clear, it would be stupid not to use social media during a crowdfunding campaign. And I have seen people make that mistake. And I smack my head. Why would you do that? So, you want to have a post that you're sending out across your social media platform every single day. And everyone on the team, every partner and every fanatic or champion and every booster that's joined the effort should be on the list to get an email with today's post, right? Here's what you send out on Facebook. Here's what you send out on Twitter. Here's what you boom, 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 boom. So that in 2 minutes in the morning, they get that email and they can go do all the posts and they can be part of the team, and it just takes them a few moments. You don't want everyone on the team having to think about, oh, crumb, what's the update I should share today? One person should have that job for the whole team. There are 3 aspects, I think, to a good social media post. One is an optimistic sounding, positive, upbeat report on the fundraising status. I used to think that wasn't important, but I am convinced people want to be part of a success and they want you to be successful. Your friends really do want to see you succeed. And some of your dear friends will do a lot to make you successful, just because they're your friends. They may not care one patootie about your cause, but they care about you. So update them in an optimistic tone on the status. I would always use "you donated" kind of language rather than "we raised." You may have done a lot of work to raise this money, but the donors feel like they did the hard part, right? They may have made that donation without giving it a second thought, but in their minds, they did the hard part. They wrote the check. They gave you the credit card number. So always use "you donated" rather than "we raised" kind of language. Then make sure that you remind people of the mission. Stay mission focused. Stay on point. This isn't about you. It isn't just about the crowdfunding campaign. This is about helping the kids, helping the animals, helping the people in Rwanda, helping whatever it is, right? Stay mission focused. Bring it back to mission. And then finally, thank people. What is the worst thing that's going to happen if you thank someone who didn't already give?
They're going to think you're incompetent.
Yeah, that's the very worst thing. That's the very worst thing that could happen, is that they'll think, oh, hey, I got thanked and she didn't even know I didn't give. Ha, 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 I fooled her. Well, I don't see that as a problem. What's more likely to happen, if you say, thank you, I want to thank all of my friends who gave and supported my crowdfunding campaign. This is so amazing. Thank you for your support. What's more likely to happen is your friends who see that message, who didn't give, will give. In fact, you see this every time anybody has a birthday on Facebook. What happens? They get overwhelmed by all the by all the birthday wishes, and then they go on and at the end of the day, they say, thank you for all the kind birthday wishes. It was a wonderful day, and you overwhelmed me with happiness. And then 36 people who didn't already wish him a happy birthday get on there and wish them a happy birthday, right? Because they missed it.
That's right.
So be effusive with thanks, because what you will do is inspire more people to give. You want people to have a sense that your friends are giving. You don't want people to have a sense that your friends are not giving. So don't ever complain about how people are not giving to your campaign. It's the worst thing you can do, because if they're not giving, if you mention that people aren't giving, it's sort of like the BCC thing. You're as much as telling people, you don't have to give. Nobody did. Join the club. It's the easiest club to join ever in history. Do nothing, right? People like to join a club. And so you want them to join the club of people who gave. Okay, we talked about coordinating with the team. Let's remember, I'm going to check the time here. It gets hard. after a while to keep it going. But I want to encourage you to stay the course. If you hit doldrums, look for another big backer that might come in as a matching donor to energize the campaign again. Say, oh, Bob, we pick on Bob a lot, don't we? So Bob's agreed to be a $1,000 matcher if we can raise $1,000 on this random Thursday during the campaign. Gives all of the people involved in the campaign fresh energy to go out and make another ask and to encourage people in your circles to give. So just keep at it. Keep going back. If you're not done with the money raising, you can go back to all the steps we've talked about and repeat and replay those as needed. So if you need to send another 50 emails, send another 50 emails. If you need to call 10 more people, call 10 more people. If you need to have another meeting or two with big backers, do that. There's a little bit in the book about Facebook advertising. I'm not going to cover it today, in part because we don't have time, and in part because it's really iffy, right? Spending any money on fundraising is an iffy prospect, and I don't want to encourage it. But I do know that there are a few sophisticated organizations that do this successfully. So I don't want you to think that it can't ever work. But don't get too excited. It is not a magic well of money, and it's a lot easier to spend more than you bring in than you'd think. So as the end comes, right, we often see a spike in fundraising toward the end of a campaign. And that's partly because of the natural urgency that we've created, right? We talked at the beginning, early this morning, it was like 6 or 7 o'clock this morning. I was still bleary-eyed. I was barely out of bed. We talked about urgency and how important that is to a campaign. The deadline, the end of the campaign, brings its own urgency. But don't rely on that. Leverage it, right? Be actively talking to people who haven't given yet, that are in your circle. Make sure they understand their opportunity to help you solve problems during this crowdfunding campaign is about to expire. Okay.
It may be because I came in late. I heard you talk about most things, but I didn't hear you talk about people who you do business with, like who you buy your vehicle from, and
Yeah.
the drugstores and all the people you buy all that expensive medicine from. Those type people, I didn't hear you say anything about.
Those are great people to reach out to, yeah. And so when you're thinking about your big backers especially, right? Oh, so she pointed out that I didn't talk enough about the people we have business relationships with, right? All nonprofits spend some of their money with other businesses, right? That's where that money goes oftentimes. So those people are natural partners, especially if you have the potential to scale up and buy a lot more from them in the future. I would definitely put the screws to them to participate in the big backer group. But yes, for sure. It's a great point. Okay, here in a minute, we're going to do the film festival. We're going to play all the videos. But I'm happy to take 1 or 2 questions if you want to do a question or two right now before we do the film festival. Yes?
Second tank donor, third tank donor, once you donate it once, how do you get them to donate again? What's that?
That's a great question. So he's asking about how do you get people to come back and donate over and over again. There are 2 or 3 different answers to that question, the way we might think about it. I look at crowdfunding as a way to introduce new donors into your organization, and less as a way of building repeat donors. Which isn't to say that you shouldn't repeat this exercise every year. You should. And each year you should hope to reach some of the same people and some new people. But as I did mention, there are practices and processes for building long-term donor relationships. And I'm not going to claim to be an expert in that, nor a master of those software tools. But I know they exist. I would encourage you to investigate them. I think it's well worth your time to invest in that process, that area of expertise as a nonprofit, and learning how to cultivate people once you have them in the door. But certainly, one of the philosophical things I will tell you about my approach to crowdfunding is that crowdfunding is not, and I hope I didn't give anyone the impression that it was, it is not a complete development plan. A nonprofit, no nonprofit can survive solely on crowdfunding. It is a great way to start a new nonprofit. It can be your first dollars. It's essentially guaranteed money. If you do what I've described today, you will raise money. Period. It's almost as guaranteed as anything in life, right? But it is a time-consuming, tedious effort, and so no mature nonprofit operates solely on crowdfunding as its source of revenue. So my shorthand way of saying this is no development plan is, crowdfunding is not a complete development plan, but no development plan is complete without crowdfunding, okay? I want you to think of it as a part, as you mature your nonprofit, as a part of that effort. One last question before we go to film festival.
How long do you typically think that a crowdfunding campaign should last?
Oh, I love that question. I didn't address that directly. She asked how long a crowdfunding campaign should last. I am really a fan of the 30-day campaign. A lot of people do one-day campaigns, right? You'll see those, the giving days. And we didn't talk about that as a specific, separate example of ways that people are using crowdfunding. But giving days, I love giving days, but I wouldn't think of that as your annual crowdfunding thing. I would do that in addition to maybe one big crowdfunding campaign each year. But obviously, a giving day is essentially a community-wide crowdfunding campaign. But I like 30 days. 30 days gives you enough time to execute all the things we talked about today without a lot of dead time in the middle. Because that gets frustrating for everybody on the team when you go back to the well 3 or 4 days in a row and there's no more water in the well, right? No more money has been raised today. And that'll happen occasionally in a crowdfunding campaign. So you don't want to have that too often. If you do a 60-day, 90-day campaign, that's just going to happen a lot more. And it takes the energy out of it, not only for the donors, but especially for the people who are doing the fundraising.
I was wondering, so you say that crowdfunding is not something that should be used as a sole strategy for fundraising. Mm-hmm. Could you do it, like have it, don't just do it once when you start, but have it like periodically,
sure.
Like every 2 years or every once a year? Or
Yeah.
every 3 years?
Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do a crowdfunding campaign every year. He asked, if we shouldn't rely on it, should we do it periodically? And yes, the answer is yes. I don't think once a year is magic, but you do get into a place where a lot of your donors will expect it, right? And they will plan for it as part of their own annual giving. And you hope you can cultivate some new ones every year and to increase the amount you collect from your repeat donors. Again, that's not something I'm going to claim expertise in, but definitely you want to make this a part of your annual development plan. Okay, let's do this, the film festival. Now, to get started, I want all of you to visit q2.devon.today. This is your ballot. This is your Oscar ballot, your Sundance Film Festival ballot, your Mississippi Nonprofit Alliance ballot, Film Festival ballot. So q2.devon.today. Everybody getting that pulled up? Okay, so video 1 is from Aaron Smith. Who's? Yes. Okay, so video 1 back there in the corner.
On March 31st, 2019, more than 200,000 Mississippians lost access to fresh fruits and vegetables. Imagine a child that cannot even eat an apple or an orange or a banana, or worried parents that cannot even feed their own children healthy fresh fruits and vegetables. You might say, well, you should get a job. The fact is that more than 2/3 of the 51,000 families in the Mississippi Delta requiring food assistance do have low-income jobs. The USDA Food Incentive Program that came to an end in March left thousands of children and elderly, as well as many others throughout the state, with no longer having access to fresh fruits and vegetables. And many of these same people struggle already just to afford any type of access to food at all. In fact, there are many communities throughout Mississippi that don't even have a grocery store near enough for them to even purchase food. We have an emergency plan in place and need your help today. The plan to help many access food immediately in 4 target communities in the state, and also raise funds for these nonprofits in the state to help those in need in every community throughout Mississippi that are hungry. 4 events at regional grocery stores in 4 communities over the next 12 months will be held. The Fill a Grocery Buggy for a Friend event will encourage local shoppers to fill their own grocery cart and then purchase another for a local resident in need. This helps those in local community immediately. In addition, for every donated buggy, our grocery store partner will match that amount for a local individual in need. In addition, anyone throughout the state, or the country for that matter, who would like to fill a buggy for a friend can help by donating $100 to the Buggy campaign on any of these 4 days. These donations will go directly to the Mississippi Food Network for food distribution to needy families throughout Mississippi. To learn more or how to donate today, please visit fillabuggyforafriend.org.
Wasn't that great? Takes a lot of guts to be first, too. Congratulations, Aaron. Okay, so score your ballots there, everybody. And I'll pull up video number 2.
Ready?
Have you ever heard the phrase, "she was asking for it"? To reduce the number of sexual assaults in this country, we must start with not blaming the victim. It's never her fault. She wasn't asking for it. There is a stigma surrounding sexual violence that we must challenge. We need new laws. We need to provide access to education and mental health services for victims. And we need your support to do this. We are raising money for a community resource building that will provide an accessible location for victims to find information on legal services, counseling, and medical intervention. While you are watching this video, another person has been sexually assaulted. Will you help us serve these victims by donating toward the Resource Center and sharing our video? Together, we can make a difference.
Excellent. That was very creative.
I did want to point out that the opening thing that said every 92 seconds in America is sexually assaulted, that the video was 92 seconds long too.
Oh. Excellent. Excellent. Okay, so which group is David Kelly? Okay, so this is group 3.
This is the Mid-South Housing Foundation. Anytime you start talking about changing human behavior, you have to ask yourself the question, how many psychologists does it take to change a light bulb? Only one. But that light bulb's got to really want to change. With that in mind, let's start thinking about some important figures, like 330,000. That's the number of students in Mississippi. Only 17% will graduate of the seniors. That's 14,000 that will not graduate this year. Of those 14,000, 11,200 will end up a ward of the state, meaning incarcerated in either a juvenile delinquency program or in the federal penitentiary. The cost to the state is over $820 million a year. Badly needed funds that could be funding education and other incentive programs that could help these families. The vision that we have is to find a way to incentivize these families in such a manner that they will keep their children in school and that these kids will have an opportunity to see that they can go to college. Through the Mississippi Treasury 529 Educational Savings Program, we are going to raise enough money for 500 children to start a savings program that will ensure that they have an opportunity, or at least change the mindset of the family, for them to go to school and finish. By graduating, they have an opportunity to accomplish something that few people in their family have ever been able to do. This will also be an opportunity for them to have more earnings than they've ever seen before. We have a chart. The reason to stay in school. Our goal is to have 500 scholarships started at $250 each. We want you to share this video. We want you to tell your friends. We want you to give. Thank you.
Well done, well done. It's fun to see what you can do on your phone with a couple of hours under pressure with just a couple of friends. Think about what you could do if you actually had some time to prepare and plan and organize and use a tripod. Okay, who's Dominic? Dominic, where did you go? There's Dominic over there. Okay, so this is Dominic's video. This is video 4. So be sure to get your score sheet out. We just saw video 3. We're now going to watch video 4.
Many Mississippians, when faced with a diagnosis of a serious illness, are faced with financial despair. Most of us are only one paycheck away from ruin. The daily stress of dealing with finances, illnesses, and unemployment can lead to depression, divorce, and even suicide.
Rescue provides financial assistance, counseling, and other support services as needed to people affected by catastrophic illnesses. You support by bringing individuals hope and keeping families together can help your neighbor through these critical transitional times.
Support by giving. Support by sharing this video. Support our families. Let's do this all together for Rescue You and for our Delta neighbors.
You know, one of the things I liked about that video was the Instagram touch. You shot it as a square video. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but that was very Instagram savvy. Okay, here, where did I put that? Okay. Video number 5, Sarah Mason. Okay, now they cheated. No. They used a very different approach. So I'm very curious to see how this will turn out. So what is the magic sauce that you use? What's that website? Biteable, Biteable.com. Biteable, Biteable.com. B-I-T-E, like what a vampire does. So Biteable, so Biteable.com. Biteable.com. A-B-L-E. So that had a very professional look and feel, didn't it? I'm going to check that out. That's pretty amazing.
Is that free or is there a cost?
I'm sure there's a fee.
So I pay $29 a month, which allows you to download things. There is only a free version that allows you to share just on Facebook and maybe LinkedIn, but you can't download those. They used to also have a limit of how big you could do it. I don't know if that's still there.
Did they have it on the web? Did they tell you on the website?
Oh gosh, yeah. So it's very clearly laid out.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Well, that was fun. Okay, so the next one is Lauren Compere.
That's me. Okay.
Oh, Lauren, great. Okay, excellent. So here we go.
Hey, my name is Lauren Compier, Development Director of One Shred of Hope. I'm an individual that is physically affected by disability and live life in a power wheelchair. We don't realize it, but believe it or not, everyone is affected by disability in some way. If you've ever had to be fed, if you've been diapered, if you've helped an aging parent or an aging grandparent, had surgery, the list goes on and on. You have been affected by special needs. The reality is that so many are affected. In the United States, 1 in 4 adults, or 24% of individuals, are affected by special needs. In Mississippi, 921,000 people are affected by special needs. That's 30.7%. Ladies and gentlemen, that is enough people to fill the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta, Georgia, 11 times. The vision of One Shred of Hope is to create a community, an inclusive community that includes people with special needs. The goal is to create a co-housing community that includes people with and people without disabilities, where people with disabilities are at the center of life together. The reality is that many people with special needs, even though it's great, they spend just as much time with paid caregivers and staff than they do with people that are not paid to be with them, with good, solid neighbors and friends. Also, many people affected by special needs, they don't understand their value and they don't understand their worth. Therefore, this leads to a life of dependence rather than independence. And also, many with disabilities simply don't have a plan B. They don't have an option to live life in communities surrounded by other people. And these communities that we're discussing, they truly don't exist in Mississippi. So the solution, like I said, is to create a co-housing community for people with and for people without disabilities, so that those with disabilities can live in community with others. We ask that you donate $100. This money will go towards a square foot of a home for someone with special needs to be able to call their home. So we ask that you share this message and come join us in this journey to change the world for people with special needs, one life story at a time.
That was great. I really want to call it, I really appreciated, Lauren, the idea of $100 buys a square foot. It was a way of breaking that project down to make someone feel like they could make a difference with $100. That was a brilliant little item there. That was video 6. So Lauren was video 6. We're about to do video 7. Genesis and Light Center. Who's that? Okay. The governor and his team. Okay.
Growing up in the inner city of Jackson was difficult for me. I constantly had to resist the lure of alcohol and drugs in a negative environment. Summer camps were very important to me. It helped me to live a positive life. And I just want to share what I've learned with others through a positive summer camp experience. Youth in our capital city deserve more opportunities for success. We have a vision to create a summer opportunity for at-risk youth to experience increased confidence, higher school readiness, and positive connections, all in a fun field in a safe environment. The less structured summer months are often a time of vulnerability for at-risk youth and have a more opportunity for failing if not have a summer camp experience. Genesis Light Center is a nonprofit community center in Hinds County that focuses on strengthening disadvantaged families and impoverished communities. We have a vision in our summer camp that reinforces positive attributes of our youth. We are coordinating with JPS and other nonprofit entities to provide positive summer activities, but we need your financial support to help provide a high-quality activities. We envision that we have scholarships for many youth as possible. So imagine the impact of enriching the lives of 100 young people in Mississippi. So please share this amazing opportunity with others by donating to our summer camp. Go to our website at www.genesislightcenter.com. Thank you.
Boy, did you see how they had incorporated those images? So, I don't know, dozens of images that really told a story, and those were sitting on his hard drive or on the cloud somewhere, free, just ready to be used. So, most of you, with a little time, would be able to find great images like that to support your video. Okay, and the winner is video number 7. Number 7. Okay, so who's team number 7? Okay, so team number 7, come see me after. I have a special prize for each of you, so don't leave without your special prize after we're done. Okay, because I need to get some information from you so I can email you your special prize. I'm gonna give them all a 1-year all-access pass to GoodCrowd.school is what I'm gonna give them. Let me just wrap up here. I've got just a couple of thoughts. I know you're eager to get out of here. Let me just share with you. Matt, I promised 4 o'clock. It is 4 o'clock right now. May I have your permission for 5 minutes for one last story? Okay. Thank you so much. I appreciate your willingness to give me 5 minutes. When I turned 40, which has been a few years now, I complied strictly with the Utah law that requires everyone who turns 40 to acquire a Harley Davidson. And so I bought my Harley, and this is moments after the acquisition. This is my wife standing next to it. And as I took this picture, she said, "Devin, you realize I will never get on this motorcycle with you, right? You know that." So I totally understand. I'm not sure I want to be on it with me. So then we live in a high-rise downtown, and so I took the bike down into our underground parking. Gail said to me after I parked it down there, she said, "Well, maybe you could just give me a ride around the garage." Right? It's been 5 minutes, and she said she would never get on it with me. So that's kind of how our extended menage a trois began. Right? We were almost inseparable, the three of us. So about 90 days later, I had an opportunity to do some business in the thriving metropolis of Soda Springs, Idaho, where they have their own real fake geyser. And we went up, did business, had lunch, and after lunch, we took the motorcycle through southern Idaho over to Bear Lake on the Utah-Idaho border, and then we cruised on over to Evanston, Wyoming, ran out of gas in Evanston, thought, The stories will tell. And then from Evanston, after the AAA guy came and gave us gas, we drove the motorcycle down to Park City, Utah, where we had dinner, beautiful dinner, and then we drove on home into Salt Lake. And right at the intersection of Interstate 15 and Interstate 80, we got cut off in traffic and crashed the bike. Going about 60 miles an hour on the freeway, I remember just sliding down this sort of corduroy concrete as my wife tumbled. Once I got my bearings, I of course looked for her, and I saw her ahead of me, quite a ways, 30 feet or so ahead of me. So I just crawled across the pavement toward her. And as I did, I heard what remains to this day the most beautiful sound I've ever heard in my whole life. I heard my wife crying and knew she wasn't dead. Well, we got there. Within 30 seconds, there was an off-duty EMT helping us, and within 60 seconds, a doctor. Of course, within 5 minutes, the medical, official personnel arrived, and they scooped us up, and they raced us off to the doctor. I was really not injured. I was scraped up, but not otherwise harmed. But Gail was in bad shape. There in the ER that night, in fact, the whole time, Gail was in the hospital, and it was well over a week. She didn't say much that was clear or made sense as a result of the trauma and the drugs. But that night in the ER, after they scrubbed all the crud out of my scrapes, she looked up at me from the gurney and she said, "Devin, we're selling the motorcycle." And we did. It turns out Gail broke all of her arms and legs in multiple places. I think we counted up 15 bones that she broke. So they admitted her to the intensive care that Saturday night, kept her there all day Sunday, and then on Monday they did an 11-hour surgery with 2 teams of surgeons, one working on her arm that was most badly broken, and the other working on her leg that was most badly broken, to sort of pin it all back together. I think she has 18 screws in her knee to this day. But for me, the low point of this whole experience came after about a week in the hospital, when the social worker came to me and she said, and this says a lot about me, and it's not something I'm proud of. She said, "Devin, tomorrow we're going to send your wife home." And I'm thinking to myself, holy stinking cow, how am I going to take care of a woman who has 4 broken limbs? She can't do anything for herself, and I mean anything. I felt like a soldier who was out of ammo, under fire, and ready to surrender. Well, I reached out to family and friends in our faith community, and they just rallied around. And they took care of us. For about 6 weeks, there was almost always someone in our house helping us. I felt, again, like that soldier who was under fire, out of ammo, and ready to surrender, and the cavalry showed up. Here's the message I want to leave you with today as you go home. You knew this when you came in, but I want you to know I know this. Sometimes you are the cavalry. So thank you very much for being with me today. I really appreciate your time. If you have a moment, one last Devin.today, pull up feedback.devin.today and tell me what you think I can do better next time, okay? Thank you very, very much.